Welcome back to the channel. Today what I'm going to be doing for the Charger project, a few people were actually asking me about the red Magnum. The red Magnum is just a mock-up car. I don't want to have to be welding around the blue Charger wagon because I just painted it, and you know, welding stuff just ruins, and grinding just ruins paint. So what I'm going to try to tackle today is the front coilovers. As you guys saw in the last video, I made coilovers for the car, true rear coils for the rear, but there is an issue. So I'm using Lexus coilovers, or some pieces from Lexus coilovers, but the bases don't fit. Even the Charger bases don't fit into the Trackhawk fork. So this is the Trackhawk fork. It pretty much just replaces that because the axle has to pass through it. So what I'm going to do is lathe. I have one of the pieces from the Trackhawk strut. I cut it off earlier, so you can see that strut. I cut the bottom off of it. I'm just going to pretty much reproduce it. So then I could weld that piece to the bottom of a Lexus coilover, or the coilover tube, or the threaded piece on the collar, not the collar, I guess. What would you call that? I guess just like a, maybe a tube. I guess it'd be called a tube. So get that done. And then I want to get the engine, pretty much all the mounting and everything done on that, as well as the rear subframe. I want to make some progress on that as well. So let's get to work. Let's do all the machining first, because machining takes a long time and it's quite a few parts. I'm gonna pretty much finish up the last of the subframe bushings that I need to make, those extra 3, then the 2 pieces for the coilovers for the front, and then hopefully I've contacted one of my subscribers. I need the rear pieces CNC machined because I can't get a hold of BC Racing to order any parts, and they've already said that they're so long out. And plus the front strut width, I could put a spacer on both sides, but it's wider than the Trackhawk rear. So it's 63 millimeters on the inside, and I want this to be a little bit taller. So I wish I could find something that's close to this, but what I ended up doing was designing something in SolidWorks and send it off to a subscriber, same subscriber that produced all, or made all of the bent sheet metal pieces that I needed, the cross member, the engine plates and stuff like that. So hopefully he can come through, because you know, they're pretty, to me they're pretty complex because they have multiple angles. It might require some, you know, multiple setup times. So we'll see what happens. Hopefully something happens with it, because I really need them. And also, if I can't get them from him, I could just make all of this out of, you know, some 1/4-inch plate and just kind of wrap it around and weld it. But I really don't want to do that. So let's get to work on this and just kind of resolve as many issues as we can. I'm still waiting on the Dodge Durango because Copart has yet to release it. So it's been a week actually. So I bought it last Tuesday and now it's Thursday. It's been a week. I haven't got it yet. Haven't even had it picked up because of Copart's ridiculous rules. And now I'm in like this limbo mode, like I've been on a lot of things, because it's very hard to ship something from back east to the west. So let's get to work, get some stuff done. Hopefully I can get all of this stuff done, and maybe the Durango will come in enough time to get to roadkill nights with the Charger wagon. So the front subframe is coming along, but like I said before, I really want to make sure that we're in the correct position. I'm almost sure that I lined everything up perfectly, but what I did was I climbed on top of the crusher car pile. I did look for this front subframe before. I found the front subframe from the 2016 SRT Grand Cherokee and the rear subframe. I think what happened was some of the other guys, I think it was sitting over here next to the crusher car, and they just put it on the car and then just put it on the pile. So the rear subframe is good. I know I wouldn't have thrown it up there. Plus it has a bunch of bolts. Plus this one has a bunch of bolts. So what I'm gonna do now is I already cut the arms or the tie rods and ends off of the steering rack. The steering rack is pretty much broken up, but it's still good for a core. And what I'm gonna do is pull that out, put it over there in the pile of miscellaneous stuff for the project. And then I'm gonna pull the lower control arms, save all the bolts, and then I'm going to bolt the other engine in here with the mounts and make sure that everything lines up with this block. So I ended up going on the crusher car pile and finding the other SRT Grand Cherokee subframe, and I used some Charger engine mounts and I had some brackets. So this is the 6.4 bolted into a kind of tweaked subframe. So this side is fine, but as you can see, the welds were ripped out of this engine mount. So it's a little bit crooked, but I think it'll get me where I need to be. So as you can see, what I'm gonna do tomorrow actually is use the laser and kind of just go off the faces of the block and then go off of the centers of the steering rack. So just to figure out if I'm too far forward, too far back, I was going to make some brackets that go from the bottom of the block or the front of the block to the steering rack holes, but it's a little bit tweaked and I lowered the engine. So the engine right now, all these mounts sit in the factory position as it would in the Charger. But the Trackhawk is so much taller, I pretty much brought the subframe up about 2.5 inches, which I wanted to be more tucked up in the car. And when I did it, I had the transfer case and the oil pan and all of that on there and everything fit, and the steering rack and everything fit. But I just want to make sure. So what I'm doing is making sure that the engine is in the correct orientation to the bottom of the subframe. That's gonna wrap up this episode, and I was able to get the engines lined up. What I noticed, so when I did all the lining up when this was in the car before I started doing any of the major body work, I pretty much just lined up the steering racks. So I pushed the steering rack and everything as close as I could to the oil pan. The engine was mounted how it would be in the car. And the diff and everything was connected to the transmission. The tranny was connected to the engine. And that's pretty much how I lined it up. I put it next to this one. It seems like this block is a little bit further forward. If I did move this block further forward, it would put the lower control arms further back, which would put the diff further back. So I'm pretty much, I'm like an inch further forward with the bottom of the subframe. So I'm gonna call it at that. You know, I did have it in the car, I had it on the ground, everything seemed like it lined up. If I go and align it and I have an issue where the wheel is off center, and I also checked to make sure the wheel was center in the wheel well, but at the time there was no weight in the car, so it was sitting up pretty high, and I did have the SXT struts connected to the lower control arm. So if there is an issue where I have, and the axles were in the correct position. So if there is an issue where the wheel is off center, I'll just end up making some lower control arms and just kind of go from there. Because if I do move this further forward, then the steering rack will be too far forward, the diff will probably be too far forward, and it'll just get into the situation where I have everything kind of out of line, and then I'll have to make an oil pan. Or, you know, I do plan on going dry sump once the built engine is in the car, but until then I want to just use a normal oil pan. So the best course of action is if I do have any issues with alignment on the front, I'll just go and make lower control arms, get everything where it needs to be. If, you know, if that's the case, it's probably just off, you know, an inch or so. So, and that's quite a bit. When you go to align a car, you can have way too much. What would that be? I think that would be negative caster. So, and you know, you don't want that, you know, you don't want an inch of, I think it'll be negative caster because it'd be further back, right? Something like that. So until it gets on the alignment rack, we won't know. But I also was able to get the rear subframe pretty close. So what I need to do is build the upper section of this fixture. And what that's going to locate is the upper section will locate these lateral arms, the lower control arm points. Also, later on, it'll locate the diff mounting, and I think that's it. Yeah, I think that's all I'm going to have on the upper section, and I need to get it to bolt in. So what I'm going to end up doing, and also this arm right here, why it's so short, it's going to bolt together so I could remove, or I can unbolt it, because there's no way, since it has this flange here, there would be no way to pull that thing out with how wide this is, because it's wider than this, and it just, you know, it just makes it easier to unbolt it, and then I can pull the upper fixture. And you know, it takes a lot of thought going into this. And the same thing with the diff. You know, when I do get that all, once I get to the point where I'm making all tube subframes, the diff will be out of here and there will be a point on this side to locate the diff. Now that I'm getting closer to having the rear and the front subframe finished, I'm still waiting on the Durango. Copart still has yet to release it, so it's been over a week since I purchased the car and paid them. And actually, yeah, it's almost been a week and a half. So hopefully I get that. Like I've said before in other videos, I'm trying to make roadkill nights, and I think I'll have everything done besides, having the car aligned. And I need to be able to put, I think at the least I'll need 5 days to swap all the drivetrain over, because everything should bolt right in. Swap all the drivetrain over, swap all the wiring over, and at the bare minimum, I could get it running and driving. The interior will probably look like a nightmare, but other than that, that's why I bought the vehicle, so I can make roadkill nights with the Charger. And it just ended up, Copart had this weird new rule at their one location. The one location I buy a car from, I should have just bought a car, a Trackhawk locally. There was one in Colorado up in Denver. I should have just got that one because I could have went and picked it up. So unfortunately, it is what it is. Hopefully I make the event, because I really want to make the event and be able to, have the car all-wheel drive, because it's going to be fast. The Durango 0 to 60 is 3.2 seconds. I don't know if you understand how fast this car is going to be, because it's going to be way lighter, at least 1,000 pounds lighter. It's going to be lower center of gravity, because everything, the engine, all that stuff is sitting lower in the car. The car's lower, the car's lighter, so I'll be able to launch it harder, and just, there's so many benefits to this. So I really can't wait to drive the car. But I'm going to end the video here. If you like these videos, make sure to click the subscribe button, throw a thumbs up, throw a comment below, share it with your friends if you have not shared it with your friends. And maybe, the more people that share it, the, more times Dodge might see it. And maybe maybe I could, do something with Dodge. So as always, see you guys next time.